Alright, welcome to Knowledge Drop. I'm Derek,
I'm Hayden.
and today we're going to be talking about energy storage. Last week we kind of did a compare and contrast for Starlink and 5G. Today I'm going to be talking about all the different kinds of energy storage that, I feel like are important and, we're going to learn together.
Let's learn. I'm here and I'm ready to be taught. I'm ready to be taught by the master.
So just to, not necessarily the master, but just to lay some groundwork, when I say energy storage, I just mean like, for example, solar and wind. When solar is producing the most, which is at noon, everyone's at work.
Yeah.
We're not using that energy. Or, at 2 o'clock in the morning when the wind is blowing, we're not using that energy, so we need to put it somewhere until, we are using it.
So the whole point of storing it would be to store up a bunch of energy so that we could kind of spread that out and not waste, because what you're saying is there's a bunch of energy that we're just not utilizing.
Yeah.
And so we need to store that somehow so that we can utilize it later, and that'll cut down maybe on that could cut down on your bill or cut down on energy usage in general.
And so some of these can be applied to like individuals, but a lot of these are more so on like commercial sides. Because right now what happens is, there's nuclear plants or coal plants or whichever, they're producing energy constantly, but then when everyone gets home from work at like 5, 6 o'clock, the usage of power goes way up.
You're right. Right.
And they have these things called peaker plants where their only job is to fire up when there's a big demand.
Okay.
And so it would be really great not to have to fire up another coal plant to, supplement the usage that we need.
Could this mean that from 3 to 6 p.m. that I won't have to turn off my AC?
Yeah, probably.
Because obviously that's the highest demand, right?
Mm-hmm.
So SRP,
our local utility provider,
the local energy company, they're like, hey, from 3 to 6, if you don't use energy, if you don't use electricity, then we're gonna give you a huge discount. Mm-hmm. But if you do use energy, it's
just higher
2
rate.
or 3 times more expensive.
Yeah.
And so during that time, you just pretty much sweat it out. It's like the hottest part of the day.
Well, like, I've heard some people, they, like, right up until 3, they get their AC to, like, 60 in their house. They just blast it to 60, and then they're just like, all right, we're going to slowly thaw out until, 8 o'clock or whatever time it is.
It makes sense because, geez, it is ridiculous.
And so that's one of the issues is, on like a housing kind of help us have cheaper power. But then there's also applications for like electric vehicles. That's starting to be huge. And, lithium ion batteries are only going to get us so far.
Yeah. So then how are you saying that how's that going to apply to the electric vehicles? Is it going to be like, I've got a bunch of energy stored so I can charge my car like overnight without having to use energy from my home or something like that?
Yes. So let's, just as kind of a preview, there's some energy solutions we'll talk about that they charge up really fast and they can get you where you're going, and then you get home and that's about all you can do.
Okay.
But it's super cheap and very accessible to consumers. And then there are other options that, if they worked, because we're not quite there yet when we'll talk about it, they're projected to have enough charge. They said if there's an electric vehicle with this technology, you could drive from London, England to Sydney, Australia on a single charge.
Wow. So you'd have a flying vehicle as well.
If you could drive that distance.
Yeah.
And so
I gotcha.
Let's so the first one I want to kind of talk about is it's a compressed air storage.
Okay. I've never heard of this. I don't think I've heard of any of these things, so
So basically what happens is, just imagine having an air compressor and then a large tank in a very small vehicle or, in your house, and you take the air compressor and you run it off of solar or wind or whatever, and you pump this tank to a certain pressure.
So the tank is in the vehicle.
It could be in the vehicle, it could be in your house. It's just there has to be a tank somewhere that
So
holds this air.
So I'm getting a ton of compressed air into a tank. Okay.
Yeah.
So then what happens?
And then when you need it, the air drives a turbine and generates electricity.
Within that same tank, or
Like
something
to
attached to it?
There's
maybe
a valve on top that you let go, and it goes. The line feeds to a turbine or something like that. Does that kind of make sense?
a turbine nearby, not like a turbine far away.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, and that creates energy.
Yes, just from any electricity that's
turning a
generated,
turbine.
we're just turning turbines.
Yeah. How can we turn a turbine?
Hydroelectric, the river turns the turbine.
Yeah.
In coal plants, the steam turns the turbine.
Okay.
And so for this one, it's just compressed air.
Okay.
And so to kind of compare energy density, like how much energy is contained within a certain amount of, in kilograms.
Mm-hmm.
This system of compressed air storage is about the same as lead acid batteries, like the ones in your car.
Okay.
But there's no lead, which huge plus. No sulfuric acid. It's not harmful to the environment because it's just air. You can get it anywhere. Something that I thought was cool is Paris, France did this in 1870.
Well, this seems... Yeah, 1870. This seems so...
Simple.
Easy.
Yeah.
How is this not why is this not a bigger thing? Why do you think?
So one of the downsides is in a fixed volume container, as the air goes out, the airflow is going to slow down because there's less pressure pushing it through.
Doesn't the air compressor maintain?
So it could maintain it, but if you're running it off of solar or off of wind, the air compressor is not going to be able to run all the time.
Okay.
And so this is like an emergency battery, we'll just say.
Okay.
And so it's kind of like, at 3 to 6 p.m., let's say around 4:30, 5 o'clock, you're just like, I'm dying. I'm going to go turn on the AC. You can run it off of this compressed air battery.
Okay.
And so when it's about to run out, as you're letting pressure off, letting air go, and turning that turbine, there's going to be a pressure drop, and there's not going to be as much pressure pushing the air through the turbine.
Yeah.
And so there's a drop off in electricity produced.
Okay.
So that's one of the downsides.
So is this not really intended as a long-term energy solution on a large scale, more of a... Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so here's another cool thing. They have had cars that have this technology.
Okay.
But they only have maybe 30 miles of quote unquote charge.
Okay.
Now on a commercial application, what they're doing, and they have already done, in Alabama they have an old salt mine that, it's underground.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm assuming it's airtight because they pumped air into this old abandoned mine and pressurized it such that they got 110 megawatts of power stored inside of this mine. And they've done this before where there was an emergency and they were able to get 26 hours of power for the whole city.
For the whole city?
City.
Oh.
This was a big mine.
Okay.
And
so when you said megawatts, I didn't have a great frame of reference for how much that is. Obviously, megawatts, that's 1 megawatt would be 1,000 watts, correct?
Megawatts, yes, it's 1,000 watts.
Yeah.
No, it's
a
million watts.
It's a million because
yes, because
kilowatts.
Kilo is 1,000.
Yeah, kilowatts. So then megawatts would be 1,000 kilowatts. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, so just to kind of put it in perspective, the American household uses about 7,200 kilowatts
Okay.
per hour.
Per hour.
Yeah.
Okay, that's quite a bit. So, I don't know, 7,200 times 24 hours. So you're using about 170,000 um, kilowatts a day.
Give or take, because at night
If
you're going to
you,
be doing
yeah,
like zero.
if you just did a straight up average. But it would probably be a lot less than that, right?
Sure, give or take.
Well, that's not bad at all.
Yeah. And so like there is very cool applications that can, you know, be used for this. The other, so I talked about how like in a fixed vessel there is a problem with, you know, pressure being lower.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't, you know, produce as much over long term.
Mm-hmm.
There's an alternative, and I think it's really cool. I don't know if it's been done yet. I couldn't find very much research on it, but imagine a fixed volume sphere and you fill it with air and you tether it and you pull it down in the ocean. You put a pulley on the ocean floor and you pull this
Uh-huh.
this sphere down.
Uh-huh.
And then as you need electricity, you let it reverse and pull.
What?
So yeah, let me start over. So it starts at the surface, and as solar and wind is produced, it pulls this sphere of air down.
Okay.
And the farther down it gets, the more energy it's wanting to pull up.
Right.
And so when you need the energy, you flip a switch and it starts pulling it up.
So it starts...
And it generates electricity. It just turns a turbine or turns a generator.
Okay, so this is, just to be clear, are we changing, this is a different energy method?
It's still compressed air.
Because you're filling a sphere with compressed air, right?
Yeah.
And then, okay. And so that volume shouldn't really ever change?
It shouldn't change. That's the advantage of, you know, the fixed volume.
Yeah.
Versus the it's constant pressure versus constant volume.
Yeah.
So the underwater one is just going to be constant volume.
Okay.
I think.
Do you know kind of what the numbers are on that one?
Or sorry, the underwater one is constant pressure.
No? Because if you're dragging it down farther and farther and farther, the pressure's changing, right?
The pressure on the sphere, but the air pressure inside is the same.
Okay.
In the fixed vessel, the constant volume, the air pressure is changing as the air gets let out.
Okay, gotcha. So do you have any numbers on, would that be similar? Like how big of a sphere do you need? It's just kind of a theory right now, or?
It can work with, that's the cool thing about this one is it's kind of like lithium ion is you can change it to whatever you need.
Okay.
There's some storage solutions in here that it's very limited, not only in size, but in like orientation even.
Okay. Sweet. So then, but does it cost energy to pull it down? Do you know what I mean? Like,
well, that's the whole point. Is like there's this bag of air floating on the surface, and it's tethered to the ground on a pulley. And so as excess electricity is produced from solar and wind during the afternoon, it's going to pull that bag down.
Okay, I gotcha. I understand the whole thing now. I was a little bit like, don't we have to use energy to get it down there to produce energy? But yeah, if we're just using energy that
is excess,
that we're
not using.
Nobody's using it at the time, then yeah, that makes total sense.
Because like, let's just say, so instead of those peaker plants I mentioned earlier, firing up a coal plant for when demand is high, instead of firing one of those
fire one of these
we just release the bag from the bottom of the ocean and let it turn turbines. And so it could be as big as we want, or it could be 1,000 little ones.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So it's...
Have you ever tried, like in a pool or something, to pull like a floaty underneath?
Yeah,
it's really hard.
But that's good for us,
like a
because,
big floaty.
You know, the harder it pulls up, or the harder it is to get down, the more energy can be stored.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's interesting. I had never heard that before in my life.
Yeah. And see that this is something that's super accessible to, like, you know, you and I.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need like any special computers or anything. So that's why I thought it was really cool, and I want to tell people about it, because imagine having just a few air tanks underground in your backyard that you can just compress and use,
Yeah,
in a
whenever
pinch.
you need. Any idea on? I don't know if this has been tested or if you've kind of researched into testing at all. Like how much energy is it comparable? It would just be comparable to like those. What did you call them?
Peaker plants.
Peaker plants.
So it's hard to compare because in different applications, so like in the electric car application, it has the same energy density as lead acid batteries.
Uh huh.
And in the 80s and 90s, that's all we used for electric cars.
Yeah.
And so it's better than nothing, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. Sure.
And for peaker plant big applications, like that salt mine, it's already a big old hole in the ground.
Yeah.
Why not use it? You know what I mean?
Put it to use. Sweet. That sounds awesome. Well, so I could essentially use the, what are you calling that? The balloon? I want to call it like the balloon method. Pulling it underwater.
Yeah, I've just been calling it like the underwater. The acronym is compressed air storage, so it's CAS.
Okay.
So it's just underwater CAS.
You know what? It needs just somebody in marketing just needs to hit that up with some awesome name. Like, dang, I don't know. Somebody in the comments, come up with a name for that. It is the way of the future.
Yeah, totally.
So you could just have like a little well in your backyard and store energy that way?
So that's actually a really good segue into one of the other energy storage things I want to talk about.
Okay.
And so it's not something that is like super complicated either. So it's the like sciencey name is gravitational potential energy.
Okay.
So in physics you learn about how if you were sitting on the ground on the surface of the earth, you have zero potential energy. Meaning
you have
can't
zero potential.
You can't.
You need to stand up and get to work.
Yeah. As you gain height, though, you have potential energy because you could fall off of that height and hit the ground with some energy.
Yes.
And so this storage system, there's no good name for it. But there's a company called Gravitricity.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
So what they do is they drill wells, basically, in the ground, and they suspend giant steel or concrete weights at the bottom, and as you produce extra, they just haul that concrete slab or steel slab up.
Okay.
And so it's kind of similar. Like all these storage systems have to do with something like that, but it hauls this giant weight.
So this is like the exact opposite of the ball of air in the ocean.
Yes.
This is like literally opposite.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Like
instead of buoyancy, it's
something
gravity.
light you're dragging down, something heavy you're dragging up.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes total sense. It's pretty much the same principle, right? Like,
yeah.
Essentially, you're just taking advantage of Earth's natural phenomenon.
Yeah.
Potential energy. So
what's cool about Gravitricity is they aren't really marketing to individuals. It's more like neighborhoods. And the hard part about this one is it's hard to find things that are that heavy that you can just drop into a big hole and lift up and down.
And when it makes impact, I mean,
it's not like a fast. It's not going to hit the bottom. It's going to be a controlled descent.
I was imagining like
a power hammer.
All right, Bill, let her go. It just goes. Boo.
Well, that's one of the they talk about how the company site talks about you can go from 0 to full power production in less than a second.
Just by flipping the switch and having it begin its descent.
Mm-hmm. And then the other thing I thought was really cool was they get between an 80 and 90% efficiency for storage. Because like with batteries, when they heat up, that's energy loss. That's efficiency loss.
Right.
And so it's really cool that they're able to kind of get these really high number efficiency.
Yeah, you're retaining.
Similar to the compressed air storage. This one's been tested though. It's got like a 50-year lifespan. Their product, Gravitricity.
Oh wow!
And so like this is a long-term solution.
Do we know how much energy it can store?
Again, it's variable because like let's just say the neighborhood is this size with this many houses,
Right,
they
but we're
can
okay.
tailor the weight to be a certain size.
But we're talking about neighborhoods. We're not talking about powering
I mean,
a few lamps in your house or something. So it is
yes,
produce. It's I mean it's storing
yes.
a lot of energy.
So like, this is only gonna be on neighborhoods because it's hard to produce enough like electricity for a city. You'd have to like
Right.
take one of the skyscrapers in New York and like dig a hole underneath it and let that be your weight. It would just be like a shifting building.
You know what? Dream big.
It's pretty cool. I mean, the height of your building changes every day, so your view would change every day. That'd be kind of cool.
One day you're on the first floor, one day you're on the basement.
Yeah.
Is that a benefit? I don't know. Something
So,
you want? Yeah, that's
but it's
yeah.
also like a very simple system. Like you have a weight, you haul it up,
Yeah.
and then you let it down.
Yeah.
So like, there's not a whole lot of ways you can, mess it up.
There's yeah, there's 0%. I mean, seems like low accidents, seems like low carbon emissions, seems like it's just pretty clean, pretty simple.
Hmm.
Like probably not very expensive to create. I mean, if they're
You still have
able
to
to market
drill.
it. Yeah.
Like that can like here in Arizona, we can't drill very far
Yeah.
because
The clay.
I don't
Is
know
that
what
what
it's
you're going
called. I've heard it called like calcitrate. I don't know. Anyway, there's hard stuff like
Yeah.
close to the surface of where we live, and so
Mhm.
it's just I guess it was like an old seabed long ago,
Oh wow.
but it's so hardened that people just don't have basements and people don't care to dig into it.
Right.
So
Yeah. Okay.
now, in the same vein as this gravitricity thing, there's another one called pumped hydro gravitational potential energy.
Mhm.
And I think this one is genius, and it's been tested and tried, and it's very efficient.
Pump hydro.
And it's been done since like the 1890s.
Ooh.
So what happens is, let's just say you have a dam,
Mhm.
hydroelectric dam,
Please watch your language
and
on this podcast.
we said dam last time, so
Did we?
I think so. Whatever.
Oh my gosh, I'll have to go back and bleep some of that stuff.
Anyway, we have this dam. Let's just say we have excess energy.
Mhm.
What they do is they actually limit the amount of water that can flow through there.
Mhm.
But let's say instead they use electricity to pump water from the reservoir into a higher reservoir.
Okay.
And so now they can have a secondary hydroelectric that
So they can have two for the price of one. In a way,
yeah, more or less.
like you're able to use two reservoirs instead of just one at a time.
Or I guess
because
so,
you're limited by just having one going
yeah,
on.
so I guess I shouldn't use hydroelectric. Let's just say solar.
Oh, okay.
You have a solar farm and you have a lake and then a higher lake.
Yeah.
So in the day when we're not using it, the solar farm will pump water from the lower lake to the higher lake.
Gotcha.
And then at night, or at 3 to 8 p.m., the higher lake will let water flow into the lower lake, producing electricity.
Okay.
Like there's going to be a turbine in the middle of there.
Yeah. Sweet.
And man-made lakes have been done
Since the 1890s,
yeah, it's
they've
very
been doing this.
Mhm.
Whoa.
Very simple.
So it seems like what we're getting at is there's enough energy to go around. We're just not using it all.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, like
So this one's kind of complicated because you do have to have like the right geological conditions.
yeah.
Like you have to have kind of hills. Like Arizona would be really difficult because we
Mm-hmm.
don't really have, like at least in Phoenix Valley.
Yeah, it's pretty flat out here.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I don't know why it makes me think of like a heart monitor, like flat, flat, flat spike, flat, flat, flat spike, because you've just got these random mountains just kind of placed around randomly.
Yeah.
And we've got some pretty tall mountains, but it's just everywhere in between is flat as could be.
Yep.
And you know what? We love it.
So, I said it was done in the 1890s, and that
Mhm.
was in Switzerland.
Gosh,
They actually did that.
the Swiss,
Mm-hmm.
always ahead of us. Army knives. So is it not cost effective, or is it just something that
No,
people
it's
don't really
very cost effective. It's just it's hard to find
the right
place, like the
location?
physical location. It's just kind of difficult because I think the research I was doing, there's one in Virginia that they built and it paid for itself within like 3 or 4 years.
Oh,
Which is,
geez.
for projects like that, that's
That's
crazy.
phenomenal.
Um, and so, yeah.
Dang. So is it just a matter of finding a company that's willing to do it and invest in it and
So I don't know if there are many companies that do this. I think it's just states and cities that are like, oh hey, we could do this.
we could do this? Yeah. Interesting. So then you could do that, and then in the lakes, you could have the balls of air.
Double whammy.
You're just like, there is so much energy up in here. I wonder how long it takes. So this, you're saying like during the day, the energy that's not used is getting used to
Pump water.
pump water, um, and then at the end of the day, it's kind of like a daily thing, or is it kind of just like on its own schedule?
It could be anything. Like, let's just say there's a power outage.
Yeah, and you've got a
I
bunch
mean,
of energy ready to go.
Yeah, you've got enough to power your city or town or whatever it is for
But on
at
like
least a little
a
while.
daily basis, could it just be used as like a relief?
Mm-hmm.
Like this is a relief for like, okay, we can kind of slow things down
You can crank up your AC.
as far as fossil fuels go.
Yeah.
And or maybe keep that going, but we don't have to sacrifice energy during the day or something like that.
So I'll say this: when you're looking into like power generation, what would be the optimum conditions is for, like, let's just say a coal plant. A coal plant can produce energy very consistently.
Yeah.
It's very hard to be like, oh crap, the usage is going way up. Like there's a lot more people getting home. We can't just fire it, like throw in a bunch of
Get
coal
your shovels.
and throw it in there really quick and
Yeah.
expect it to burn faster. Burning is a consistent. I guess you can pump more air in, but it's harder to.
It's probably not good for it either.
Well, yeah, because like imagine you have a lot of usage and then everyone goes to bed,
Mm-hmm.
and then you just threw in all that coal and you're producing all this energy.
Right.
And so, kind of the idea for like a smart grid is to have a coal plant that produces like the minimum energy for everybody, and
Kind
then
of like a
for when
baseline.
it peaks up, yeah, a baseline, and then when it peaks, that's when something like this would come in where it would just cover that peak.
Sweet. Yeah. Yeah. So then you're just remaining consistent throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't seem that complicated.
I mean, it's happening. It's just
It's just
not happening
slow.
as well as fast as we want. It's not the Elon Musk pace. It's more of like the
Everyone else.
the government pace.
The government. Yeah, if you had to make a spectrum of like how fast we want to get things done, I think high end, like at the very high end is Elon Musk.
Oh yeah.
And at the very opposite of the spectrum is the government, right?
Yeah.
More or less.
That's pretty accurate.
In between, you could have like whatever company you want, however fast they want to get stuff done, but the government's probably going to be the slowest.
Oh yeah. I mean, and that's just bureaucracy.
At my work, whenever people are just standing around, somebody always comes over, they're like, you guys look like you work for the government. Like, it's just government work, you know?
That's awesome.
So what else you got? Are those
So-
a lot of the main ones, or?
These are just my favorites. I didn't do all of them.
You used to tell me about, what was it, a gyroscope?
Yeah.
It could be
So
under your house or in a basement or something?
Yep. So this was my idea. It's called Flywheel Energy Storage, FES.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, and this is what cars use as well. It's just imagine a heavy disc that once you start spinning it, it's hard to slow it down, right?
Yeah.
So what you're doing is you're turning electrical energy into rotational energy,
Mm-hmm.
and you can use that to, like, if you want to brake, quote unquote, you can just use regenerative braking basically.
What does that mean?
Regenerative braking. So like instead of using like clamps to clamp down on your
Mm-hmm.
brake and
Mm-hmm.
like heat it up and slow it down with friction, you reverse the polarity of an electric field, and so instead of the magnets will be pushing against each
Yeah, yeah,
other, and
yeah.
you'll slow down because of magnetism.
Mm-hmm.
And so that magnetism is turned into electricity, and that electricity can be used for, you know, moving again.
That's incredible. That's so smart.
And so flywheel energy, you know, another cool thing about flywheel energy is in space, satellites, if they don't want to use thrusters to, maneuver,
Yeah.
they have two spinning flywheels that spin super, super fast.
Hmm.
And if they want to turn or make any kind of adjustment, they can speed one up and slow one down. And it will
Wow.
turn the satellite.
Jeez.
So cool.
So, what is that little example? I just kind of to give it an image of what this flywheel stuff is about. You have a really heavy disc attached to a pole, right?
Yeah.
And you spin it. And once you spin it, it's really easy to lift it up. Have you ever seen an experiment like that?
Yeah, so those are gyroscopes, and like you can buy them as toys on Amazon.
But it's you can doing that. You can kind of get a similar idea of like directionally how you can aim it.
Well, that's the thing is when it's spinning, rotational energy, it's hard to change that direction without altering the speed.
Yeah.
And so what's cool is like you've seen the experiments where they hold up a bike tire upright.
Yeah.
Like if I'm staring the flat side of a bike tire in the face, you can spin that and hold it by the axle. If you spin it fast enough, it will stay upright even if you're only holding one side. It will spin around your hand, like you'll have to it'll orbit your hand basically.
Yeah.
But it will stay upright because the rotational energy is throwing it upwards and downwards at the same
I think this is
rate.
what I was kind of meaning to say.
Oh,
but
I got your back.
Probably didn't say it very well.
Yeah, I got your back.
Dude, that's sweet.
So, anyway, going back, imagine a giant concrete or steel cylinder that's in a vacuum sealed container, and then it's levitated by magnets. That's in a nutshell what people are doing
For the
flywheel.
For the flywheel. Okay.
And
I didn't know that it was a cylinder. I thought it was a disc.
It could be a disc. It's
Disc
just
cylinder.
I'm trying to
Okay.
simplify it more. And they have magnetic bearings, and so there's no friction losses.
Right.
Because if you use regular ball bearings, there's friction in those, and the research like in flywheels, you lose like 20 to 50% of energy within like
Because of the
2 or
friction.
3 hours. Yeah.
Okay.
And so magnetic bearings are definitely the way to go because it's no friction. And so imagine this floating tube or this floating cylinder that there's no friction, there's no air resistance, and then you start turning it.
And it just
And
gets
turning
faster
it
and
and
faster
turning
and
it.
faster and faster.
And the cool thing about this is because there's no air, there's nothing affecting it. There's one thing affecting it, but essentially there's nothing affecting it. It has an indefinite lifetime. Like it could just stay there forever.
Creating energy?
Storing.
Storing energy?
Yeah. It has infinite cycles.
Jeez.
Now,
So it's not, you're not going to have a breakdown, you're not going to need to replace this every once in a while.
correct.
Because you're not wearing anything down. It's just,
There's
It's
no
just
there's
floating.
one moving part and it doesn't touch anything.
yeah. It's a pretty smart idea.
Now, the funny thing about this is it is affected by the rotation of the earth.
Okay.
So I told you like
What?
that bicycle tire idea.
Yeah.
If I try and manipulate it and like change the like if I try and make it move differently, like if I change how the face is angled, it's not straight up and down. If it changes that angle to 5 degrees, it loses energy in that change.
Okay.
And so the earth is turning. And so if your, flywheel is not aligned with the pole of the earth,
Yeah.
like if they need to be spinning on the same axis, basically. Not axis, but like.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I guess that is
the
word I'm looking
right.
for. But if they're not perfectly aligned, then there's going to be some losses as you turn around the Earth.
Okay. Well.
Crazy, right?
I think you just disproved flat Earth.
Yeah. There's a lot more things we can do to disprove.
There's a couple things.
And the cool thing about this one is because there's no friction, air resistance, that kind of stuff, it has a 97% efficiency in charging and discharging and storing energy. 97.
Dude. That's pretty good.
And we mentioned at the beginning of the show that you could... there's a energy solution that you could go from London to Sydney.
Yeah.
This is the solution.
Oh, okay.
And so
okay.
There was a news story out that came out a few months ago that China made a carbon nanotube that if you could put that into a disc, you could spin it fast enough and put enough energy into it that you could drive that far.
Okay.
Because right now, the limits of the technology of flywheels is how fast you can spin them.
Right. Okay.
Because
well, why?
So imagine
if it's.
So you know when tires on your car, when you start going really really fast, they start to expand and they get wider. Or
yeah.
They get bigger.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you keep going faster and faster, the rubber is being pulled apart by the rotational energy, and it's gonna burst. And so steel, same way. If you spin it fast enough, it's gonna pull itself apart.
Wow.
And so the only two ways to get more energy storage into flywheels is to, one, make it heavier, or two, spin it faster. And so
okay. So then what's this? This is a material that.
Yeah, this is very much a material science problem, and China, everyone's searching for carbon nanotubes, but China set a new world record for, strength of carbon nanotubes. And they were saying with this carbon nanotube, if you could, put it inside of a carbon fiber, reinforced disc, you could spin that disc fast enough that the energy stored in it, you could drive an electric car from London to Sydney.
Assuming
you could drive that,
Well, no. I mean, yeah, that's one thing. But what about like... So you'd have to have an electric car with a battery capacity that could hold that charge, right?
It would just be that spinning disc in the bottom of the car.
Oh, okay.
You wouldn't need any chemical batteries.
Okay.
Now, here's the other thing about electric cars and why this probably won't work. So if this is spinning at like... I think Boeing set a record a few years ago of like 200... let me check really quick. So Boeing set a record for 1,405 meters per second of spinning.
Oh my gosh.
And that was with like the best of the best technology.
And a disc that won't fly apart.
It did fly apart.
Okay.
That's why.
They're like, just push it.
Yeah.
Push it more.
Yeah.
So here's a question. If you've got a spinning disc in the bottom of your car, that's not affected by your forward acceleration or braking or anything?
It not going forward or going backwards, but when you're turning, it will very much affect.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't think it's a very good solution for electric cars.
Right.
Because yes, there are options of like, let's say you have two discs in your car and they're stacked on top of each other. Mm-hmm. One is spinning one direction and the other is spinning the other direction.
Yep.
That would help, but you're adding complexity to a solution, and like added complexity, it just causes problems. And so there are ways to do it, but it's just one of those problems with it.
So you think it would be applied more to homes, neighborhoods?
This is a cities kind of application. It could be for housing. There are zero companies that do residential applications for this technology. Okay. Which I think is like a huge gap in the market.
Missed opportunity.
But like for something that this is also not affected by temperature, like your phone battery.
Right.
Like if you take a Tesla to Alaska, the cold temperature will affect the life and the charge of the battery.
Okay.
But this technology, it has zero effects. Temperature has zero effect. It has much greater storage capacity. Like the energy density is way greater than chemical like batteries. Um, but the the downside. So there's two downsides. One, rotation of the Earth, and just turning in a vehicle.
That dang Earth.
Yeah, seriously.
We can't get it to stop rotating.
Can't hold still for 1 second.
And the motion of a vehicle. Yeah.
Well, and
but if you could power a city with it, I mean.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
You're good.
The other downside is it's very hard to make this small. Like you couldn't have a flywheel energy system in your phone. Because the magnetic bearings, actually, I guess, I don't know, no one's ever tried it that small before, but the magnetic bearings that create the zero loss environment, the magnetic bearings are huge.
Yep.
Like, I'd say they're probably like 5 or 6 feet in diameter.
Wow, okay.
And they're very expensive, so.
Yeah. I think that city is more important than phone. Because then I can plug into an outlet and, I mean, I'm using that energy, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So that makes sense. It's just like, do you think these things will all become part of our everyday lives? Or is it just kind of like we're missing these opportunities?
I think they're missed opportunities. So I did a solar energy project a few years ago. Mm-hmm. And there's enough energy that hits the surface of the Earth at one moment to fuel the entirety of civilization on Earth right now. Like all of the electricity needs of the world, like 3 or 4 times over.
Now, are you speaking in terms of even with the solar panels that we have today, or are you talking about 100%?
So if you could put solar panels in space. Mm-hmm. And basically cover 1/2 of the Earth, you could power all civilization 3 or 4 times over.
Even though they're not totally efficient.
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to be clear.
Yeah, but where would we put all that energy? And so that's why I feel like these are some of the problems that we're facing today, because it's really exciting in the time that we live right now. Mm-hmm. We've got rockets flying basically every week. We've got electric cars that can drive themselves.
Satellites going around.
Yeah, satellites are going to provide internet for everybody. There are amazing things happening. Like we mentioned last time, a third, 30% or 33% of energy produced by the world last year was green energy.
And that even surprised me. That surprised me a lot. I thought it was going to be so much less. But that's not bad.
And now, if we want to continue on that trend of not treating the Earth like crap, we need to be able to store the energy that's just being wasted.
Yeah.
Like all of the solar energy, tidal energy, all these. Maybe we need another podcast episode on green energy, but I just think we have all this great technology to produce energy. We just don't have that great of solutions. They're very developed to store it.
Yeah, it takes a lot. I mean, there's so much behind it, and it's all just motivated by money. Yeah. And it's so much easier to go with what you have than to switch over, right? Which just makes it so complicated, but, when worst comes to worst, like, if we really were on the brink of just total and complete destruction, I think that humanity would find a way to be like, you know what? We need to do something different. I don't know if that's today,
Yeah.
I don't feel like we're 10 years away from total and complete destruction. If I did, then I would probably live my life a little bit differently. But yeah, no, I mean, this stuff is awesome. And it's just like, here it is. Why aren't we taking advantage of it?
Yeah, that's why, I kind of want to see if I can get some kind of compressed air storage thing at my house. And, see if I can't rig that up myself. And
do you think a lot of this stuff has patents already?
Or yeah, probably. But how do you patent a concept? Like,
Well,
it's just compressed air.
but you can patent a transmission or an engine or.
No, but I mean, like, what we're talking about is, like, combustion. You can't patent combustion.
Yeah. Well, you can patent the methodology, can't you? Like.
I don't know.
Creating energy or storing energy in this way. I'm pretty sure you can patent that.
I guess that's true, because, like, the Wright brothers, they had a patent on fixed-wing flight for years.
Mm-hmm.
But there were other guys who, changed the... I don't know. I'd have to look into that.
I mean, I'm sure that...
But I'm also
sure
not
that
going to be, like,
can figure it
selling
away.
compressed air storage kits.
Yeah, it's not like it's big enough to be, somebody's going to come after you if you did that.
Yeah.
There's no way. But yeah.
But now, just to kind of talk about what we already know, like chemical batteries.
Mm-hmm.
We have lithium ion, we have nickel cadmium, like all these different chemical batteries. And do you know how chemical batteries work?
Nope.
Okay. So, not disappointed.
I'm always going to be the guy that you can always just tell me because either I don't know or I only have a vague idea.
Oh, I'm not afraid to be like, I don't know.
Yeah. I don't want to pretend. It's always worse to pretend like you know something.
Oh, gosh, yeah. It's always the worst when you, like, get all the way through your explanation of something and they're just like, I don't know what batteries are. Yeah. I don't know how batteries work, and you're just like,
you need to go back.
Forehead smack.
Yeah, you need to start with basic math.
Yeah. So anyway, let's just do a simple battery. You have an anode and a cathode. Mm-hmm. Anode is the positive terminal. Cathode is cathode is positive. Anode is negative.
Yes.
Because there's two sides to a battery.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's an electrolyte. Mm-hmm. So in a lead acid battery, like in our car, it's sulfuric acid. And then there's different compounds of lead in there.
Right.
And so what happens is when you connect a load, like if, let's just say it's a totally charged battery, meaning there's all of the lead is lead.
Mm-hmm.
And then you connect a load to it, a light bulb or whatever. What happens is ions start transferring through the electrolyte to the anode, the negative terminal.
Okay.
And it turns into like lead sulfide or some other lead compound.
So you're, in a way, having a chemical reaction of lead turning into
something else.
Lead sulfide or something.
Whatever it is.
Okay.
And so it's a cathode, electrolyte, anode.
Got it.
And when you want to charge, you just put instead of a load, you put a power producer, and you just put it through the negative terminal into the positive terminal. You just reverse.
And does it convert back?
The lead?
Yeah. Okay. So that's all we're doing.
So it's just going to be a transfer back and forth from one compound to the other.
See, that's really simple, but I think it's something that a lot of these simple things we just take for granted, and it's like, I don't really know. It's just a battery, dude.
I don't know if you've taken apart a lead acid battery before, but like...
I've licked one.
There are lots of wafers of lead.
Yeah.
And
right. There's like different lead walls. I remember that.
There's greater surface area, and there's better charge that way, and it doesn't. You don't ever want your anode and cathode to connect.
Yep.
When you're charging and recharging, because sometimes they're called dendrites. Because eventually your cathode or anode, whatever, is going to build up enough residue of some compound. I can't remember what it is, but it's going to build up enough where it's going to contact another plate, and then you have a short. And that's when it heats up and explodes and stuff.
That's when you get an iPhone, whatever it was, exploding in your pocket and on an airplane.
I thought it was the Samsung.
Oh, was it Samsung?
Yeah, it was the Samsung
I
Galaxy.
think you're right. It was a Samsung Galaxy. Was it 8 or something?
I don't know.
7,
I don't
8?
keep track.
You don't even mess with that stuff. It's just pure Apple.
Or the hoverboard. Yeah, you could do that too. But anyway.
Was there a hoverboard that exploded?
Yeah, they were catching fire all the time.
Oh, like the...
They didn't explode. They just caught fire. Actually, I guess some of them exploded.
That's not as exciting.
What? You don't want to be cruising down the street on your awesome hoverboard and then just go boom?
If I was cruising down the street and it just lit fire, that might look really cool.
Increase your cool power.
You just
for your cool
cruising.
points.
Just cruising.
That's funny.
What's that smell?
And so those are traditional batteries that we're all familiar with. In your phone, in your Game Boy. I don't know if it plays Game Boy anymore.
Yeah, I've got it right
the
here.
3DS.
Yep.
Whatever.
Your 3DS.
We all know those batteries. Proven technology. It's good.
Yep.
Now there's another chemical battery that uses solid, no electrolyte.
Okay.
It's a solid battery. I mean, there's no liquid. It's just two solids.
Mm-hmm.
And this hasn't really been successfully done. Like, there are a few tests and stuff that have been done.
Okay.
But this has the potential. It has a lot greater energy storage than chemical.
Mm-hmm.
And it has a lot better lifetime. And it's more economic. It's more
What's it called?
environmental. It's just solid battery technology.
Because what? Sorry to if I throw you off, but like you have lead and you have lithium, and then you have this would be a different one.
No,
right?
so those are just
That's just the elements that you have
Yeah.
in there. Okay,
So
so this is just a different method of converting.
Yeah, the reason why lithium is better is one, it's lighter.
Mm-hmm.
Like the metal is not as dense as lead.
Yeah.
And it has more capacity to have. It has more energy. How do I describe that? Lithium is a more reactive metal than lead. Lead is, lead. It doesn't react with anything.
Okay.
I mean, it does react with things, but it's if you just leave it there, it's just going to stay there.
Yeah.
Lithium, if you leave it in air, it immediately reacts with the air and becomes lithium oxide.
Okay.
Like you see those videos of guys dropping sodium in lakes and it just immediately explodes.
Yeah.
Very energetic because it's higher up on the periodic table and, that kind of thing.
Cool.
There's some other stuff with, electrons and stuff, but we can skip over that.
Yeah, we'll leave that science
But anyway,
stuff to you guys.
Yeah. Solid state batteries, what would happen is there would just be an anode and a cathode right next to each other inside of a battery.
Mm-hmm.
And they would, be able to, or let's just say let me start over. John B. Goodenough. This is a guy, yeah, his name is
that
John B.
can't be a
Goodenough.
real name.
It's totally a real name.
What?
He was the co-inventor of lithium-ion batteries and random access memory, RAM, in computers.
Uh-huh.
Like, this guy, he's a freaking superstar.
He's more than good enough.
And he's, like, in his 90s, and he's still working.
He's John B. Excellent.
Yeah.
I think he should change his name.
He's, like, in his 90s, and he's working on solid battery technology right now.
Jeez.
And he had a successful test with a solid battery using glass as an electrolyte.
Whoa.
Not liquid glass.
Yeah.
But, like, imagine a glass pane and then, like, two metals or something on either side of the glass.
Mm-hmm.
And that's your battery.
So why are we doing this? Or why is this going to be...
One, it's significantly going to increase energy density for batteries.
Okay.
And then two, like...
Energy density being how much you can store?
Yeah, so per kilogram, how much energy can you put in that kilogram?
Got it.
So, like, lead, very poor kilogram, or, I can't remember what the measure is, but...
Yeah, not as good.
Yeah, versus lithium-ion, which is super light.
Mm-hmm.
Solid batteries have potential to be even more efficient and more energy dense.
So your phone, if it had one of these batteries, your battery life could be extended dramatically.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, in addition,
that's the first thing
I don't know if
think
you've...
of.
Yeah, I mean, I always want my phone to last longer.
Yeah.
Imagine you're in Alaska. So I lived in Alaska. That's why I'm always going to use it as an example.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine you're in Alaska. You're on your phone, and it's like 0 degrees,
mm-hmm.
which is pretty mild day in Alaska.
It's a little warm, actually.
Yeah, it depends.
I don't know.
Anyway, your phone at one point will say, "Hey, it's too cold for me to operate. I'm shutting down," and it will turn off automatically.
I've done the same. So
here in Arizona, I guess it's similar because if you leave your phone on the dash in the summer,
oh my gosh,
almost immediately it's like, "Oh, it's too hot. You got to cool me down if you want to do anything."
I'm out.
And so that's because the electrolyte in the battery
mm-hmm.
is liquid and it's heating up,
It's
and
heating
the
up
battery
too
is
much.
going to expand I mean, all
Hmm.
electronics have an operating temperature, but the battery is the most sensitive. I'm pretty sure is the most sensitive part
For
of
sure.
electronics.
Yeah.
And so solid battery technology, there's no liquid. It's just two solids.
Dude.
And so it
Okay.
wouldn't be as susceptible to temperature changes.
That's really useful.
Yeah. So that's something that's really cool that is on the up and up.
Yeah. Then you could get batteries in places where you couldn't get them before, right?
What do you mean?
Um, I don't know.
Are you
Maybe
talking?
there's a situation where you need a battery in a hot place, like near an engine or something. I don't know. Near in a plant where there's a lot of hot stuff,
I guess I
or
don't
your
know those
phone.
applications.
Never mind.
I guess it would be good for like space because
Yeah,
batteries when they get really cold they don't work as well, and so like in space a solid battery would work really good.
that's what I was going for. I mean, you didn't catch on. No, yeah, I just imagine there would be situations and you'd want a battery. It's too hot or it's too cold, and
Yeah,
we got it.
because right now what they do is they just kind of pick and choose the battery that can withstand certain temperature differences.
Uh huh. But you may, I don't know. Maybe there's some sort of sacrifice you have to make.
Yes, there are sacrifices.
Some
You always have to make
pros
a
and cons.
sacrifice, whether it's with weight or with energy density
Or with life.
or yeah.
I'm just trying to pull this. I'm just trying to apply this to us. Gotta make a sacrifice. Choose your battery.
So the last energy storage device that I want to talk about, I really like it, and it's definitely out of the hands of the common consumer,
Okay.
but I think it's super cool. So it's called molten salt reactors,
That's pretty cool.
or I just molten salt storage. It's thermal energy storage, and so instead of storing like gravitational energy where you hoist up a weight or you pull down the air,
Mm-hmm.
what this does is you use excess energy to heat up salt, like table salt
Hmm.
or some kind of metal, some kind of salt. Salts are all kinds of compounds.
Sodium chloride.
Sodium chloride, table salt.
Learned that from Jimmy Neutron when I was like, I don't know, 12.
Yeah. Um, so what happens in molten salt is two metals that there's a few different systems, but
Mm-hmm.
basically there's two metals that are separated by an electrolyte. So imagine a super heavy metal, an electrolyte, and then a lighter metal,
Okay.
all in molten form, like liquid,
Oh,
like hot liquid metal,
okay.
in a container, and that's your battery.
Okay, but is this battery just incredibly hot
Yeah,
all the time?
yeah.
Like, what can you. So, here's a weird question. Maybe it doesn't make any sense at all. What container do you need to hold a molten material that won't melt through?
Ceramic.
You knew it was ceramic?
Well, I mean, like so let's just say I'm heating up aluminum. I could have a steel case to heat it up in.
Okay,
As long as the container has a higher melting point than what's inside of it,
easy.
it's not a big
Okay,
deal.
not a problem.
So like
But where is this battery amazing or something? Does it?
but it's just simple. Like it's hard to
But
construct
is
it.
it applicable?
Yes.
Why did I say it like that?
I don't
Is that how you say it?
know.
Applicable.
I mean, you could say it applicable.
Probably in Great Britain they say it like that.
Yeah. Um,
So it's kind of the same amount of energy storage and whatnot,
so
but it's just simpler.
it was hard to find an equivalent, like how to relate it to other technologies, but this is something that they're planning on using for citywide use.
Oh,
And so, it like because it's just liquid metal, it lasts a lot longer,
mm-hmm.
and it's metal. It's not like some exotic, you know,
Yeah, it's not
uranium.
hard to get. Mm-hmm.
It's cheap. It just we have to
Long lasting.
get the systems in place. But from what I was reading, some systems when they have this thermal energy stored, like the liquid metal stored, the energy capacity stored to its max, it can last up to a week.
Oh,
Not in discharging, just in storage.
Okay.
Like just in sitting in the crucible or whatever it is.
And so, is this something where something? Because we're talking about energy storage, right?
Yeah.
Storing energy that we don't really need, or not that we don't need. Sorry, energy that we're not using.
Yeah, just excess
Wasted energy.
Well, I wouldn't even say wasted. It would be wasted otherwise, but it's just
Right.
excess.
That's what. Yeah. 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 And so, are we charging this battery somehow, or it's just a method that lasts longer?
Both. I mean, we are charging it, and so let me also say there are other systems of molten salt reactors and storage devices that it just uses molten salt as a, thermal. It just stores the thermal energy and then it heats up water.
Okay.
And the water drives turbines.
Oh.
So like, there's a lot of variation. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the most efficient is the one with the two metals and I guess it would just be two metals. I don't know if it has to have an electrolyte. It would just be two metals that sit on top of each other.
So let me ask you, what makes this one your favorite?
It's not my favorite, but it's something I'm excited about because one, it's something that is new, and it's not like it's some kind of crazy concept to grasp. Like you have the basic idea of it right now.
Yeah.
And like with a few $1,000s, I guess we could build one.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I don't know. I don't feel like any solution to our problems today are going to be through complex things. Like it's going to be going back to basics. I feel like.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, those basic ideas are there, and they're just, well, when you say basic, it makes me think easier for people to understand, common people, which has a lot to do with it. I mean, if people don't really get it, then they won't buy it, right? I mean, if you're selling to a business or something.
Not necessarily, because like.
Well, I guess that's true because all they care about is what it does, right?
Yeah. For example, I always refer to Elon Musk just because I hear a lot about him. He always breaks things down down to like the physics.
Okay.
And so like Cybertruck, freaking ugly car.
Yeah.
I mean, to some people, it's kind of cool, but it's kind of weird. We'll just
on Mars though.
Yeah, on Mars
it would look great.
But right now it looks weird. But it is incredibly aerodynamic.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Because it looks not as aerodynamic. Because it's not very smooth, right?
For a
it's
truck.
Okay. Yeah. It's a more aerodynamic truck, not more aerodynamic than like a sedan or something.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And so but one of the decisions from that was because of the design was based on the physics of the fact that if I make it more aerodynamic, it can function better.
For sure.
And so like I feel like some of these energy solutions, because they're driven more by physics, very simple physics principles, buoyancy and gravity and these things, it's easier for us to grasp and easier for us to implement.
Yeah, it just simplifies the entire process to where we don't have to go to extremes to have the energy that we need,
Yeah, like, we're seeing a lot of people push for like more nuclear plants.
Mm-hmm.
And like, yeah, that's one way to deal with this issue.
Hey, be careful, man. I'm a big nuclear guy.
No. Don't get me wrong. I think nuclear is cool. I like it. I almost became a nuclear engineer. Because I want to work in fusion energy.
Yeah.
Which is a whole nother thing.
I just want to split an atom.
See, I don't want to split atoms. I want to fuse them together and make a new atom.
Ooh,
that's what fusion is.
Jeez, another podcast.
Yeah.
Episode.
Anyway, we don't need more energy production. We need more. I guess we need more energy production, but we don't. We're going for the low-hanging fruit.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like.
Yeah, we're just saying.
Obviously, renewable energy has to be our future.
Mm-hmm.
If it isn't, we're gonna mess up the future.
Yeah. Yeah, I think nuclear is just kind of like look, this is an amazing solution. It's an amazing short-term solution.
Yeah.
In my mind. And by short term, I mean even then, it's probably giving us hundreds of years.
Yeah, for me, when I think
Because
of nuclear as an option for energy, I'm like, for the next 50 to 100 years, nuclear is a good option. But after that, we need to move beyond.
hmm
Like fusion is a good one. Like that's the energy of the future.
Yeah.
Because that's what the universe is driven on, is fusion.
And well, see, the thing is, fusion gets grouped in with nuclear. I mean, that's when I say nuclear.
It is nuclear energy.
Yeah.
You're right.
So I when I refer to nuclear, I include fusion because obviously at some point you can only use so much uranium, you know. And there are other things out there like oh man, what's it called? I don't have the article up anymore, but there's another element that you could use.
Thorium.
Thorium.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. And you can only use that for so long, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is. You're going to run out at some point.
And you're still creating lots of waste from that.
Yeah.
Fission plants. But fusion, you know, your byproduct is helium, which we're running out of, by the way.
I didn't know that. That's
it's
no good.
It's lighter than air, so it floats out.
It's just floating away.
It just floats away.
But it's more... okay.
We're not producing it.
That's what I was going to ask. Does anything make it? Or
we can't make it. It's an element. So we'd have to use two hydrogen atoms smacked together and make helium.
That can be arranged.
Yeah.
Well, very interesting. But yeah, I guess the bottom line is we're going to run out of... These things are finite. And by definition, you know...
Can run out.
And also...
Will run out.
Obviously, it would be ideal, you know... A solar farm is not going to be... a solar farm's not going to explode and destroy your entire ecosystem and water supply and give a bunch of people cancer.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah, I mean, that's the end goal. But we need something in the meantime that's going to be...
Yeah. I mean, so just think about this. So part of that solar project I did, at the time, if you put 33 acres of solar farm, which is a big chunk.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was 300 acres. I can't remember. But if you put, we'll just say 300. 300 acres in Arizona, 300 acres in Spain, 300 acres in Australia. You could run the Earth.
What? I guess 300 acres is a lot.
But I mean, like, that's at 100% efficiency.
Oh. Well, what's our efficiency rate right now?
Or maybe it's not. It was such a long time ago, I can't remember. But solar panels.
That old project.
Solar panels are like, I don't know, anywhere from 10 to 20% efficient. Like they're not that
just
great.
Double the acreage, or not double. 10 times the acreage.
It's just cover the Earth.
3,000 acres.
Yeah.
Dude, one thing we have is land. We have land for days. I mean.
No, but the problem then becomes like
maintenance.
We're gonna not even maintenance. It's like you're gonna destroy. You know.
No, you won't.
Not destroy, but like you're gonna cover beautiful landmass with shiny solar panels.
80% of Arizona uninhabited, and you could go out
by
there
by people.
Yes, I know. We're worried about the animals and whatnot, but I'm pretty convinced you could find enough space.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying, like, you still want to preserve the Earth for our children to experience it in the way that we did.
Question for you.
Yes?
Let's say it was 3,000 acres.
Okay.
There's 3,000 acres in Arizona. Would you sacrifice that to have the energy that you need? And also take away bad energy methods, I guess, in quotes.
So, I'll answer your question with a question. How many houses do you think are in Arizona that don't have solar panels on top of them?
That don't?
How many uncovered parking lots do you park your car in to bake under the sun that could be covered by solar panels?
Way too many.
Do you think there are 3,000 acres of uncovered rooftops and parking lots in Phoenix that you could create shade?
You have to do some serious math on that one, because.
Well, I'm just asking this question because instead of destroying, it'd be a lot easier, but I feel like it'd be more worthwhile to put solar panels on
Just a lot
in
more.
the city.
Just a lot more red tape. Like
Yeah, but
more
also remember, if you put a 3,000
laws.
acre farm 100, 200 miles away from Phoenix, the power transmission lines are like, you're gonna have losses there.
True. No, yeah, I mean, I'm not even. I don't even know why I'm fighting so hard for this. I just
No,
stuck on it.
well, it's not that you care.
I
I don't care either way. I just
Yeah,
think
I don't think
that,
that's any sort of type of the actual solution.
yeah, like, yeah,
It's just an idea. Like, what are we willing to sacrifice? Are we willing to sacrifice?
well, I think it's more of like, are we gonna make go for the low hanging fruit
The
or not?
easy, yeah.
Because like, if we just take the easy way out, then we're just gonna destroy the environment like we have been with fossil fuels. And
It's just 3,000 acres isn't that much. Like there's I'm telling you, there's so much land. There's land for days. You can quote me on that.
But
You can say Hayden Rush. There's land for days.
so how about this? In the future, when there's 100, when there's like 8 billion people on the planet, do you think we'll still have enough space?
I think you should have gone with more people because, we're not far away from that,
16 billion people.
dude.
The Earth
Keep
is like
pushing it. I think you could get a
ridiculous.
lot of people.
Well, hang on. Let's check. Really
Did
quick.
you know that you could fit every human being shoulder to shoulder in the city of Los Angeles? 6 billion is a lot, but we
You're
take
saying
up more space than we actually like physically need to. Like everybody drives their own car. We don't all,
But we can't.
How many
all-
empty seats are there?
We can't all live in the same city, though.
No, I know, but I'm just saying as far as like we don't take up that much space as human beings.
Yeah. So
It's just that everybody lives on the coast.
Yeah.
That's the real issue. It's like we
Apparently-
need to spread out.
to this Google search, the Earth can support up to between 2 billion and 40 billion.
Okay, I was really afraid that they were going to lowball it and bullcrap because it can support a lot. Like, because I've seen some reports that are like the Earth should only support 5 billion, and so
But that
we
was
need
with,
to.
like-
And it's like, no, we can do this.
No,
we have so much space.
That estimate was made because the growing techniques at that point were not good enough to support. Because like in the
That many human
60s and
beings.
70s, people were like, "Oh, we need to stop having kids."
Yeah.
But our growing techniques and farming has gotten so good,
Mm-hmm.
like we're wasting a whole lot of food.
Oh my god.
But yet we're still living as a 6 billion populated Earth.
Yeah.
And so,
No,
anyway,
yeah,
what,
you're right.
I'm just
Sorry.
saying, like, if we need to expand, so like, let's just say Phoenix in the future is double the size.
Yes.
We have not only the loop around Phoenix, but we have now an expanded loop around for the highways.
Yeah.
So Phoenix has a loop around Phoenix. Imagine an outer loop.
Sweet.
We have double the amount of people here. And now your solar farm is in the way of,
Expansion. Whatever.
But now you have all these rooftops that now are just absorbing heat.
Mm-hmm.
You could put solar panels on top of those, and then every home is producing its own energy.
Yeah.
Or at least supplementing its own energy.
That's what I
use,
was gonna say. It's not gonna cover it, but
depending on house size. I did work in solar for a year in a stretch,
mm-hmm.
and I was the one that was doing the solar analysis on like house size and usage and stuff like that. And so like there are some like 3-4 bedroom houses, depending on the roof shape, that you could overproduce more than you use in a day.
Oh, cool.
So, but that's getting off.
Well,
topic.
yeah, I think we've strayed a little bit. We're well over an hour at this point,
Ooh.
so I think let's call it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that you had such great questions about energy storage, and I'm glad that you see like that there's a really exciting demand for it in the future, and
Yeah, we need it. Like
Yeah.
at some point, it's not gonna be like, oh, this is just a good idea. It's gonna
Yeah.
become something that's a lot more important. So.
Absolutely.
And what's the point of producing so much energy if we're just wasting, I don't know, certain percentage of it,
Yep.
So awesome. Thanks, dude.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah, and so we'll see you guys next week.
See you guys next week. Signing off.
Bye.